before this shit went all the way left, we was like definitely kind of talking about like media having responsibility of like perpetuating shit and like making shit go further than what it needs to be like, but necessarily sitting with the wrong people and giving them platforms.
Yo,
So like,
the real solution for this period is that we gotta stop having gatekeepers, man.
yeah,
Gatekeepers are the issue. That's what it boiled down to. The people that are at the top. You got to ask yourself, if these people have been the gatekeepers for 20 years and never got better, why would you still be in position? Just like any other business, if somebody was running a company for 20 years and the people didn't get no better, but the bosses just kept getting bigger checks and the people kept struggling and dying and all that, you wouldn't keep the same bosses in place. So that's something to consider. And when you think about being a gatekeeper, what gate are they keeping you in? What gate are they keeping
Mm.
you out? You know.
But is it only certain people that could talk about this or not, or can make this topic or not? Like, is it only a subjection?
No. What it's like normal street stuff. Niggas get aggressive. Always watch this. That's just the nature of the streets. If you think this nigga will get aggressive with you, you won't be aggressive with them. So it's a jail tactic. Like, oh, you gotta calm down, nigga. It ain't even like that. Yes, it was, nigga. I was asleep. I could feel it in my sleep. It was like that. So just keep the same energy.
And then and now I'm just going to turn it over to him. So hope you get something out of this. Hey, you may need to stretch this video out for a couple of days, break it up a little bit, because I know between me and then now him, it's going to be a lot of talking. So take your time, go through all of this, and I really, really hope you got something out of this. So with that being said, may y'all bless you and keep you. And now let's get to the other video, the other portion of this video. Take care now.
Good evening. Lawrence Otis Graham is a nationally known attorney and commentator on race, politics, and class in America. A contributing editor at U.S. News and World Report, he is the author of 12 other books, including Member of the Club and Perversity. Getting Past Face Value, as well as articles in the New York Times, Essence, and Glamour. A graduate of Princeton and Harvard Law School, Graham is best known for appearing on the cover of New York Magazine after leaving his Manhattan law firm and going undercover as a busboy at a discriminatory country club in Greenwich, Connecticut. He also appeared on the cover for the story Harlem on My Mind. An alumnus of Jack and Jill, the son of a link, Black of the Boule, Graham is uniquely qualified to write about the Black upper class. His wife, Pamela Thomas Graham, is a management consultant and the author of the Ivy League Mystery Series. She is a graduate of Harvard Business School, and Harvard Law School. They have a son and live in Westchester County, New York. It's my pleasure and Apple Books' pleasure to present Lawrence Otis Graham.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I want to thank all of you for coming out here and welcoming me to Detroit. And this is not going to be a very formal presentation. Since we have an intimate group here, I'm going to have a dialogue with you and talk about my new book, Our Kind of People Inside America's Black Upper Class. I know some of you may have been familiar with the book that was just mentioned, my book, Member of the Club, where I talked about my experience going undercover as a busboy at a country club in Greenwich, Connecticut, where I was exposing bias in a country club. And for me, it was not an issue of getting to play golf or tennis with affluent whites. It was an issue of this being a business issue where a lot of important business networking goes on in these country clubs. And it was my intent on trying to really, in a sense, embarrass people who knew that what they were doing was wrong, and that was discriminating against not just African Americans, but also women and Latinos. So, but the new book that I'm talking about, Our Kind of People, looks at the history of America's Black upper class, and it starts from the 1870s when we had had our very first Black U.S. senators and first Black members of the House of Representatives, and comes up to the present. And during that time, I'm looking at the first Black millionaires in the country. And those people include Madam C.J. Walker, who was the first woman millionaire, who just happened to be a Black woman. And she made her first million in the 1890s. I also talk about Alonzo Herndon from Atlanta. And you'll notice that a picture of his mansion, which was built at the turn of the century, appears on the cover of the book as well. He's the founder of Atlanta Life Insurance Company. Now, in the book, and it's become somewhat controversial for those people who've was on the cover of this month's Atlanta magazine and the Chicago Tribune Sunday magazine, and in this month's Our Detroit magazine, as well as the Book of the Month Club selection. A lot of people are talking about how I define class. What do I mean when I say upper class? Am I talking about wealth? Am I talking about influence? Am I talking about education? I'm really talking about the gamut, all of those things, because a lot of the issues that come into play when we talk about class in our society include such things as financial wealth. They include background as far as how many generations of a family have been rooted in a particular community. I grew up in a lot of the organizations that I guess would be embraced by the Black upper class as a member of Jack and Jill, and my mom's in the Lynx, and I'm a member of the Boulé, and my parents got a home in Oak Bluffs, Martha's Vineyard many years ago. So I've grown up knowing many of the people that are part of this history. But what I was trying to accomplish in writing this book was broadening the definition of what we mean when we talk about Black people in America. I don't know if you remember a show, Good Times, from the 70s, or Sanford and Son. And I remember growing up in the suburbs outside New York City, where a lot of the white kids who went to school with me and lived in my neighborhood would ask me every Thursday morning, I think it was that Wednesday night, Good Times came on, JJ and Esther Roll. And these kids would ask me in the morning, what did JJ mean last night when he said to his parents, blah, blah, blah? And they would mention some slang term because they assumed that because I was Black, I would have to, of course, know any Black slang that was used in that Chicago housing project. And that was the narrow definition of what it meant to be Black for them. The same thing goes with Sanford and Son. That was one of the other few representations of Blacks on television. Fred Sanford, played by Red Fox, was a junk dealer. So they just assumed, well, of course, you must know other junk dealers. And what's interesting is that it wasn't until the 80s when The Cosby Show came on that I started to see people that I knew, Black people that I knew that were like me in The Cosby Show, where you saw professional parents and intact families and kids that went to school and didn't split their verbs. And a lot of folks said, well, this isn't a realistic portrayal of Black people. And not just whites, but Black folks too. We were saying that's not realistic portrayal of Black people, when in fact those are the only Black people that I knew, were families who were doctors and lawyers and bankers and people whose kids were bright and ambitious. So I think that we have a very narrow definition in our country that where whites and the mainstream media have said, well, what it means to be authentically Black, and particularly if you are successful and are authentically Black, you are an athlete or an entertainer. And a lot of people ask me, well, you know, you spent 6 years working on this book. Are there going to be a lot of famous athletes and entertainers in it? And I basically ended up saying after finishing it, I said there are virtually no athletes or entertainers because that is not the population I'm talking about. I am talking about, as I said, people like Madam Walker, who while she made in their photos of an incredible wedding that she gave to her granddaughter in 1923 for $60,000. A $60,000 wedding in 1923 is, I mean, it's astronomical in today's dollars. It certainly was incredible in 1923 dollars. But what's also important about her story is that she was a woman of great wealth who had founded a company that manufactured hair care products and started a chain of beauty schools. But she also, with this great wealth, was also contributing to the NAACP. She gave thousands and thousands of dollars at the turn of the century to the NAACP to aid them in their anti-lynching campaign. So it was not just an issue of of Black people gaining great wealth and throwing debutante cotillions, because that's also a very big, important part of this group. The debutante cotillions, the separate social clubs like Jack and Jill for Black children, the Links for Black women, the Boulé, the Girlfriends. And then when you talk about sorority and fraternities, there are also specific ones that fit into the Black upper class, the AKAs, the Deltas, then the Alphas, the Kappas, and the Omegas. So Black people are not a monolith. We are not a monolith. There are many different segments within our Black population. Just as it's no surprise that within the Irish community, you have the wealthy Kennedys and then you have working class Irish. Among the WASP population, you have the Rockefellers who are wealthy, and then you have the working class population. We too have the same thing. But I think it surprises and disturbs some people when we talk about class differences within the Black community. And I go back to the beginning, when Africans came to this country, because we did not divide ourselves initially. It was the plantation owners that divided us into the house niggers and the field niggers, where you had the dark-skinned Blacks working in the fields in the harder labor, and then you had the light-skinned Blacks that they put in the plantation owners' home in the quote-unquote prestige jobs, like the mammies and cooks and butlers and servants. And then what happened is these two different caste systems were created. So you had light-skinned Blacks who got the better opportunity, better housing, opportunity for better education, and also better employment. And then you had the dark-complexioned Blacks that did not have those same opportunities. These two caste systems stayed intact. So light-skinned Blacks married each other. They created certain organizations. They were the first ones to go to schools like Howard and Morehouse and Spelman and Fisk University and Harry. So when I was interviewing in the 12 cities that I profile, including our city right here, Detroit, I asked people, well, what were those important institutions? And in their minds, within the Black upper class, there were very, very specific organizations and very specific religious denominations, very specific vacation resort locations and specific cotillions that were unique to their group. This was a group. Many people ask, well, how much money do these individuals have? It's not an issue of how much money. They don't ask the question, how much money do you have? The questions they ask are, where did your grandfather go to medical school? What debutante cotillion did your great-grandmother come out in? Those are the kinds of issues. And there's another aspect of this, and that is the issue of skin color. Because even as awkward and uncomfortable, a lot of people have been very upset with me in dealing with this. They look at the photos in the book, like on the cover, and they say, well, why are all these Black folks so light complexion? Why are they so light skinned? And I tell them, well, historically, the Black upper class has been a group of people that has embraced the notion that the brown paper bag and ruler test was important. If you're darker than a brown paper bag or your hair is not as straight as a ruler, you were not welcomed into their organizations. You were not welcome into their social groups. And it's a very sad aspect. And I found that even in cities like Washington and Atlanta, that still seems to be an important factor in determining one's membership in some of these organizations. So it comes as surprises to some people, but we too as Black folks pay attention to that. A lot of this book, some of this book is first person. I talk about my experiences of my great-grandmother who grew up in segregated Memphis like my parents did, and who would visit us at our summer house in Oak Bluffs, Martha's Vineyard, and she would scream at my brother and me, stay out of the sun, stay out of the sun, you're dark enough already. And my parents were furious with her, but they knew that she came from a society and from a period that really cared about those kinds of things, about looking less Negroid was something better. And that is what's so troubling about some aspects of the Black upper class today. And that's also why there are some negative impressions that people have about these elite organizations, like the various sororities and fraternities and various social groups and cotillions. Now, in the book, I talk about some of the various ways, in addition to the different social clubs like Jack and Jill, which was founded in 1938 by a group of affluent Black women. There were 6 of them. 5 of them were married to physicians, and one was married to a banker who had founded the oldest Black bank in Philadelphia. And the reason why they created Jack and Jill, some people don't understand, well, why does there need to be a national organization for affluent Black kids? What's the purpose of that? They created it because of segregation, because they recognized that they were raising their children in a city that the kids were not allowed to go to the public museums. They couldn't go to use certain public swimming pools, couldn't go to certain public theaters. They couldn't ride on certain buses. So their concern was, well, some of us have our own swimming pools. Some of us have access to institutions where we can bring these kids together and teach them and make them feel good about their Black identity. And at the same time, maybe even bring them together with other Black children in other cities that are similar to them. So that's why they created that organization. A few years later, the Lynx was formed in 1946, also in Philadelphia. And today, although over the time, a lot of the women that belonged to these organizations like the Lynx, the Girlfriends, they're all by invitation only membership groups. There's no one you send a check to or call up and say, I want to join. How much does it cost? But these are organizations where people are nominated by friends or nominated by neighbors or people in their communities that belong to these organizations. Now, one thing that is noticed is that in the book, I talk about some of the stories, the way in which in some cities it's very, very difficult to get into these groups. The Boule, which I belong to, was founded in 1906, and it's had members like Virginia Governor Douglas Wilder, Ron Brown, who worked for the Clinton administration, Vernon Jordan, a lot of very accomplished Black men. This W.E.B. Du Bois is one of the earliest members of the organization. Now, many of these groups are very quiet within, you don't hear about them in the mainstream media. In many cases, you don't hear about them in the Black media, but there is a lot of good that they do in raising money. I mean, the Lynx, to give you an example, gave $1 million last year to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. Its membership include people like Myrlie Evers from the NAACP, and Janetta Cole, the former president of Spelman College, Hazel O'Leary, the former Secretary of Energy. A lot of, and virtually all of the Black congresswomen, Sheila Jackson Lee, really very accomplished people that are doing a lot, serving as role models, giving time for public service. The same thing goes with these sororities and fraternities. They have required amounts of hours that these women and men give for public service in the community. So there's a lot of good that they do as well. I also talk about the summer vacation resorts, because historically there have been some famous Black vacation resorts, not just here in Michigan, but also on the East Coast, places like Sag Harbor and Long Island. People like president of American Express, Ken Chenault, is summers in Sag Harbor. He's a member of the Boule. His kids are in Jack and Jill. His wife is in the Lynx. And you start to find these patterns of these people vacationing in the same places with people that they belong to organizations with and people that they had gone to college with. The other interesting factor that I noticed in my research was that there's certain religious denominations, even though the Baptist faith is the largest religious denomination among Black Americans. One thing that I noticed among the Black upper class, you most often find people that belong to the Episcopal Church or the Congregational Church. And I asked a lot of people, why is this? You know, do people specifically try to separate themselves from Black Baptists? And some of them said, well, yes, that's what they were doing. Others said that they perceived of themselves as, there's one woman in Chicago said, we see ourselves as almost like Black wasps. We're very reserved. We don't like to show our emotion, express our emotion that one often finds in Baptist churches. And once again, there's also the belief that by separating themselves from the Black mainstream, one makes themselves appear to be more exclusive. So sometimes it's coincidental, sometimes it's intentional. So those are some of the issues that I try to address in the book. There's some parts of the book that have made people very uncomfortable, and that's the issue of passing. There's a chapter on racial passing where I talk about some members of these very prominent families, and I talk about the old guard families in 12 cities, in Detroit, Chicago, New York, Atlanta, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, New Orleans, Nashville, Memphis, and Tuskegee, and the other two are escaping me right now. But I heard stories from a lot of the families that kept telling me, you know, we have siblings, or we have children, or we have parents, or nephews, nieces, cousins, aunts, uncles who pass for white. And obviously, in the 20s and the 30s, there were real reasons for why some people decided to pass. There were economic reasons, being able to get jobs, being able to live, go to certain schools, being able to live in certain kinds of housing. But I remember interviewing one woman in Washington who told me she had she lived in Washington. She had to buy a wedding dress. And at that time, I think it was in the mid to late 50s, in the big department stores, this was Garfinkel's department store, black women were not allowed to try on dresses. So she was light complexioned enough that she could pass for white, and that's what she did. Other people told me stories where they did this in stores in order to buy shoes or to buy hats, because the same thing goes, black women and men were not allowed to buy shoes, try on shoes or try on hats at certain stores in certain parts of the country, major department stores. So they passed for that reason. I recently learned that in my Philadelphia chapter of the book that I unintentionally outed somebody. I write about a very prominent black family in Philadelphia. Their last name is Christmas. And Dr. Lawrence Christmas, who was a well-known dentist in Philadelphia during the 20s, the 30s, and 40s, he was also the founder of the Philadelphia chapter of the Alphas, the men's fraternity. And when I was interviewing people in Philadelphia, I said, well, who else is surviving in the Christmas family? And they said, well, they would tell me, well, there's 3 children. They all 3 live in New York now. I said, well, what are their names? And they said, well, one is named Marie Roan. And I said, Roan, that sounds like a familiar name. And they said, well, yes, you've probably heard of her daughter, Sylvia Roan, who's the president of Elektra Records, who's the highest ranking black woman in the record business. And I said, and who else? They said, well, Marie was president of the Smart Set, which is one of these black upper class women's groups. And her husband is a member of the Boulé, and Marie has a sister named Alice. And I said, well, what's her name now? And they said, Alice Mason. And the name immediately reminded me that I knew that name from New York. And Alice Mason happens to be one of the most prominent socialites and party givers in New York for sort of upper class white society on the Upper East Side. She also has a real estate business where she sells apartments that only sell for $1.5 million and more. And her best friend is Barbara Walters, and she socializes with people like Brooke Astor and the Buckleys and Peter Jennings and Henry Kissinger. So I wrote about her and the Christmas family, her family that she came from, and talked about this prominent black woman who was a real estate broker and socialite in New York. And when the book came out, just a few days after the advanced copies went out, I got these calls from Philadelphia black folks who I interviewed, and they said, thank goodness Alice finally came out of the closet. And I said, that was my response to, I said, what do you mean finally came out of the closet? And then, because I didn't know what they were talking about, and they said, well, I guess we neglected to tell you that Alice lives as white. And for the last 40 years, that's how she's been living. And I said, well, yeah, I guess you did forget to tell me something. So I just want to clarify that it was not my intent to out this woman or anybody in the book, because I was very careful, because she's not even in the passing chapter. She's in the Philadelphia chapter. So it just shows you the lengths to which some people will go. But I said, well, okay, now tell me the scoop now that you didn't tell me before, and my book is out. And they explained to me that she had gone to Colby College. And I then immediately turned to my passing chapter, because I have a section of the book that's on passing, and I have what I listed as the rules of passing. I sort of put these together based upon people that I had started on page 380, based upon how people told me their various relatives or friends went about passing. And I sort of collected them and put them together. And for instance, number 1, passing will be easier if you attempt it while away at college, preferably on a campus that is predominantly white and located in a small rural town. I was told that she started passing when she went to Colby College, which happens to be in Maine. And you can imagine how many black folks were in Maine in the 1940s, virtually none. And and that was not something that was very common for blacks who came from the South and sent their children to small, and I don't mean like white colleges like Cornell or Harvard, big schools where there might be other black students, but small white colleges.
From the hood to the woods. What up, what up, what up, what up, what up? Yeah, man. Gatekeepers, huh? Bang time, salute. Yummy, salute. Team Taurus in the building. Light, salute. Yeah, did y'all know that, what's his name? COINTELPRO. J. Edgar Hoover. Did you know J. Edgar Hoover was passing for white? Did y'all know that? Yeah, man. Gatekeepers, huh? The Boulé, huh? In my day, we called them the bougie. Yeah, but I told y'all, man, y'all gotta do y'all history. Y'all gotta, man, pass it. A lot of black folk pass for white folk. There's a lot of white folk out there that ain't really white. They think they white. This shit is all fucked up. It's all made up. Like, ooh, that white girl, ooh, she look like she got some black features. Could be black. Or so-called black, it's all made up. Me, I don't, all of these secret societies and all that shit, I don't really subscribe to that. But let me see what the fellas think about that. I believe in little groups. Everybody got little groups and, secret groups. They making this thing into something else. You know what I'm saying? Giving too much power to these people. A lot of it be weird. If you listen to this story, like, I listen to stories of all type black people, native black people, African black people, Boule, whatever you want, Creole. And some of these black people is, from all over the place. Big time.
Salute, salute, salute. From the hood to the woods.
I heard it.
What's poppin'?
Hey, shit.
Yo. Yeah, that shit right there. Oh, my God. Yo, and you know what? And then you ask, do you believe in it? I believe that because we know about this shit has to exist. Too many people talk about it. Like, you know what I mean? Like too many different people talk about it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so that's
what I'm saying, because what happens is when people talk about things, right? Like, all right, one time I was listening to Tupac, he said some shit about the Illuminati. So he was in jail. The first time he heard about the Illuminati, he was in jail. So a nigga came up to him and he was telling him about some secret society, the Illuminati. And Pop was like, man, who told you? The Pope? You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah, right. Like, how you got out with
right,
it, with
like,
this
if it was secret
information?
society, how the fuck
Right.
is nigga in jail? Like, come on, man. It's propaganda. You feel what I'm saying? Because now, if you believe in this shit and you get to a certain level in class, and then you meet a person who wanna take advantage of you, and they telling you all this secret society, boule, they could do this for you and do, you know what I'm saying? Now I believe people have little groups and secret groups. We have those. Everybody has those amongst each other.
I believe that's how it starts. It's a little group, like a fraternity, right?
Right.
You know how the frats do it? Like, they started as a little group, a graduate group. Then next year is another graduate group, and that shit. And I believe after 20, 30 years, you got a bunch of groups that's established, and some people are successful and some people aren't. And I believe in it. Like, let's just take something like when I first got arrested, right? I had gotten a hold of this book called The Pale White Horse.
Oh yeah, I know.
Just carrying that book, I got all this fucking attention, and people started bringing like stories of the Illuminati to me, like, you know what I mean, and telling me about the Masons and and shit like that, you know what I mean, and it was just from carrying the fucking book, you know what I mean. So it was like, what the fuck, like, you know. And there was a couple of other books that shit happened to me with. So I believe that this shit exists and people know different things, and they, that folklore shit. You know
what people gotta remember is it's different classes. So the higher you go up in class, the smaller the group is. So these people know each other from school, from growing up, from family. They marry into each other's family and things of that nature. Like, when we from the bottom looking up, and we group everybody together as this, the boule, and they rule. Nah, it's gatekeepers.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
But you say like what was his name? Mr. Watkins, voice, the doctor, that guy, right?
Right.
Now he came up with his little thing, and that's just from this year. He talking about he want the little 10% of the black community, but you would put him directly in the Boule. I think he was talking about getting people from the Zach Boule society. You
That's
know what I
what
mean?
I'm saying. Because when you say the boule, now that brother on here is talking about the boule for real.
For real.
Right,
Yeah.
but not the boule we talking about on here. You feel what I'm saying? It's like the Masons.
Right.
We had Masons, but niggas say, oh, the Masons is some.
Nah.
You feel me? It's just groups within these circles.
Right. And then they got a sworn ordinance to not talk about their proceedings and all of that. And it's a lot of them. So you be like, so people who don't know, they just make up, oh, there's some secrets.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And how could you how they gonna challenge it? Because they can't say that.
Right. Yeah, they can't say that.
Right. So these niggas is writing books and getting paid off this shit. We all caught up in this shit, like
secretly creating it, right?
But you gotta remember, anybody who give us some type of information is trying to sell a book or they trying to do something. You feel what I'm saying? It's not like
That's
they just
fact.
giving us this. If it's so life-changing information we need to know, why the hell we gotta wait to get it in your book? Like,
yeah.
And the shit that be killing me, they be on this high level shit. But who be buying all this shit? The lower class motherfuckers.
right,
You gotta sell all
Trying to
this
get to
shit.
that level,
Right.
right?
Man, they be on like main man. He look like you on a,
the same
like-
people they talking about because it helps them. It's propaganda.
exactly like main man on there. He look like he's good, he doing well, but he gotta come to the trenches to sell his shit. Know what I mean?
Yeah.
The motherfuckers that's in his circle ain't buying that shit. They could care less
He
about
said he
that.
toured many cities, and first of all, who's you talking about? Stephen A. little brother over there, right? And he looked just like
Yeah.
Stephen A. Smith. But yeah, man. He said he toured cities and he went here and went there and took this and went undercover and.
Yeah.
But I think he's doing that all in for the white community. He not doing that shit within our community.
Bro, them niggas, all right, so if they talk about the boule, everybody on the internet talking about the boule, any of these upper class blacks and all that, they're gonna try to get into, now they want to be a part of the boule. It's just helping them grow. You feel
Right.
me? Propaganda. Like,
And you say, they were like, damn, them niggas put me a part of the boule. What the fuck is a boule? Now they start looking and now they join the shit. Like,
now they sitting in some meeting with funny hats on. You know what I'm saying? Some shit like that. What the
Right.
fuck is this? I thought we was going it's wizards and Anunnakis in here. What the fuck? This is boring. You know what I'm saying? This
They
weirdo
should've
right here telling me he gonna let me meet Zion or Zeno or whatever the fuck.
the church, the Catholic
Yeah.
Church.
But
The
he
Catholic
kinda
Church
fruity.
has a group.
Yeah, he keep touching me funny. You know what I'm saying? So why he got the secrets and all that. You feel me?
Word.
Niggas going to tea parties and shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Catholic Church got a group called Knights of Columbus, and it's very similar. Like they have like closed door meetings and pledged meetings, and you know what I mean. And think about how long they've been around, right? So they've had this group, generation after generation for like 100 years, bro. Like you know what I mean? So,
Because everybody, when they came here, the Catholics, there was the Knights of
right.
St. George, the Knights of Columbus.
Jackie Robinson was down with this fucking thing. All kind of people was down with this shit. So you know what I mean? It's like whatever you into. My friend was talking about making a club, but he wants to make it like a men's group club like that. Like, you know what I mean? I was like, that's like a bikers club, bro. And you gotta have in situations. He was like, yeah, how'd you know that? I was like, it just a club. You gotta have a president, a vice president, a treasurer. Like
Now,
they
now
want
if
that
that
shit.
nigga was rich, he
Right,
was boule. You know?
right, right. I get what you're saying.
Like they got clubs out here in PA. One time my brother was trying to get into one, and they was like,
Like the
"Nah, we ain't."
Elks or something.
Nah, they got the Elks out here. They had it out here. They shut that shit down. That shit different. It
That
was
shit real different.
like a golf shit or something like that. Like, you know what I mean? With these Caucasians, they shut them down. Like, we ain't not giving you no application. We don't even deal with your type of type of shit. Like, respectfully, like
He wasn't
what?
light skinned enough. He should have let you go.
Yeah, yeah.
My brother light
According
skinned than
to
me, bro.
that information, he was darker than a brown people.
Nah, I'm not fucking with you.
That's fucked up, right? Niggas pull out a
Did
brown
you
paper
know-
bag and be like, "Nah, you too dark. You gotta
Did you
leave."
know did you know J.
fuck?
Edgar Hoover was passing?
Y'all laughing, man, but my grandmother was dark, right? And she had like this thing, like even to when she got older, she had this thing against light-skinned black girls or women, right? And it's because of that shit that he was just talking about, the Debatons, all of that shit on that time. Like, know what I mean?
Did you know J. Edgar Hoover was passing for white?
Yeah, I knew that. I knew that, and most of his laws was against black people, and I think he just hated the fact that he was black. A lot of people don't even know that he was black.
What?
I don't think it's that he probably was part of those people. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, the Debatons and all of them. Yeah, a lot of people didn't know he was black, but that man's half black, bro.
Yeah,
that's in a movie and all that.
Nah, it's not half black. Back then, one drop is the
one drop. You was black. That's right. Oh man, and he kept that shit away. That's why he went so hard against the civil march.
That's why
rights march and all that.
It's funny if you look white, you could pass for white, and people will say you half black. But if you look like Obama, they'll say you black. You feel what I'm saying?
Crazy.
That shit don't exist, man. That's what I be trying to tell people. This shit is all a system, a structure that was created to.
Oh, this black lady, like 10 years ago, this real black lady, she was telling me, man, she was like, y'all Puerto Ricans, y'all lighter skin, y'all think y'all could walk with them, and that's where our beef comes in right there, like, you know what I mean? Because y'all black and da. She was going in. She offended the shit out of me, but to come to find out everything she was saying was real, I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, but you know, it's black Puerto Ricans too.
Right, I am one of them. But I get what you're saying.
No, I'm talking about like blacker than me, blacker than me.
Dark. Mm-hmm.
I'm not even talking about dark. I'm talking about black. They just speak Spanish. You feel what I'm saying? And that's why a lot of times people be making a race out of a language. Like
what? But you heard them like you had to be less Negroid. You had to look less Negroid. Right. I was like, what the fuck?
You had to have the Carlton thing going on.
And he's saying this is 1923 to 1935, bro.
So like, imagine how many Asians and Hispanics was passing for white.
Right.
You feel me? Like how many people are really white? That's what I'm trying to tell. You know what I'm saying?
That's what my grandmother was saying.
Real spooky, man.
That shit makes sense though, bro. Because even out here, most of the time you can't tell who's Spanish now or who. You be thinking of white girls a white girl. They bitch be Spanish and all types of shit.
Right. Ain't no such thing, man. People starting to sleep together. The segregation is over. Well, that segregation created race. That created big races.
According to this year's census, they said the multi-race shit is at a boom, and white people are at a diminishment. Like, you know what I mean? In the country, it's like 60% multiracial or black.
That's a fact.
You know what I mean? So this is why they all in a panic and all this shit is going on right now with all this They scared the fucking death.
That's why you see the numbers is starting to dwindle on people. I ain't even want to say nothing.
Yeah.
You say the wrong words on this bitch.
They still, their grandbabies is still loving people though. You know what I mean? So they ain't got no control. That's what I had to
Never
learn.
had control. All they had was time. They just trying to buy the time. You know what I'm saying? All we gotta do is pay attention. Once we wake up, it's over. They just trying to keep us asleep, man. Hypnotize. You dangling this little watch in front of us.
All these distractions are up. So the whole shit is about to go in shambles.
Yeah. Niggas is trying to pack it up. You see niggas packing it up, leaving, nigga. You know what I'm saying? Niggas is out of here. It's over, nigga. It's over.
Trying to trick niggas to get on a spaceship and go to the moon and shit.
Yeah.
I ain't going to no fucking moon nowhere, motherfucker. Fuck out of here. Y'all can go though.
Yeah, they can
go
go
out.
Get y'all. They can have fun with that shit. I don't care.
I'm good.
Shit, we need our own Earth any motherfucking way.
Niggas said our own Earth.
Oh, they not going to. If they decide to leave, they ain't going to leave our Earth untouched.
Nigga, we going to take. Oh, yo, get the fuck.
Niggas
Y'all got
said
your
our
own
own Earth.
shit.
I'm dead.
Get the fuck
Yeah,
up
we
out
need
of
our
here.
own Earth.
Give us our own Earth. Y'all niggas take all y'all niggas. Get the fuck out
Own
of here.
planet, bro.
Yeah,
our own Earth.
We already got our own Earth, nigga. Right?
Yeah, and we not on our own Earth right now,
Niggas
bro.
said we need our own Earth. Get them niggas out of here. Don't worry, man. Them niggas don't rule the Earth. We only tricked into believing. Cause I used to believe, damn, the white man rule the whole world. But then one day, as I always get these thoughts, I'm smoking a blunt. I'm like, damn, the white man rule the world, but what about Asia?
Yeah. White man rule
How about the
Asia?
Middle East? Like, wait a minute. I think the white man just rule over here.
Yeah. They rule over here, and their ideology is challenged everywhere. Like, this shit crazy.
They rule the European colonies, like not the world there, but they don't rule the world. I can't go to what's the little nigga Yang Ju, the nigga the little.
Oh,
I can't go over there and tell
Yang
him. I can't go tell him, y'all the white man rule the world.
Yeah, shit, motherfucker. Drink this Hennessy and shut the fuck up.
He go like, niggas gonna come in and try to behead me.
Gonna pass you the Hennessy.
You got it, man. The white man don't rule over here, man. You got it. Rule the world. You got it. Because when you say the world, right, that means everywhere, right?
Yeah. I don't even know how to quiet the rain that they have now, like for so long, like, you know what I mean?
Because that's what they wanted to do. Niggas wasn't thinking about trying to take over the whole shit. Like, niggas was just living. Like, niggas ain't coming together to take over some shit.
Shit, when them Persians came over here, they was giving them hell, man.
When the who?
When Persians came to fight Greece and Rome and all of them.
Oh yeah, I don't know, bro. I don't even believe in that shit.
You don't even believe that shit happened?
They gotta have to show me Alexander the Great's bones or some shit.
So he's just a story, a myth to you.
Yeah, they gonna have to show me Xerxes' grave.
And the fact that they made a movie about it even makes it worse. Like,
right. I believe them stories is the stories about how they came in over here, how this shit happened over here. That's what I think.
Yeah, because I was at the fall of the Roman Empire, right? That was the beginning of the fall of the Roman Empire.
Where? Which part? The Roman Empire never fell, man. That shit is still here. That's where we at.
Mhm.
It's the Roman Empire, man. What's the imperial religion of the Roman Empire?
What's the imperial religion of the Roman Empire? Isn't that Catholicism?
Christianity.
No, Christianity. Yeah, that's what I meant to say.
And that's where we all come from, the Roman Empire. All the people who came over here before they was Protestants, they was Roman Christians. Well, Roman Christianity.
Christians took over this shit.
Well, there's a difference between the religion and Christian people, faith. You feel me? Those people got mixed up and caught up in this shit. Hence, yeah, where we came from. But this country, the first people over here to colonize over here were Roman Catholics.
Facts.
Which brings me to my question. Why in the world, in the what they call the Spanish colonial era, that's what they call it, is there El Cristos Negros? Please, somebody explain. I am baffled.
Only thing that could explain that to me is the people at the time were black, man. Like, I can't.
That's what I'm saying. If they wasn't all black, they didn't hate them. They didn't hate blacks.
Right.
They wasn't these racist people we talking about that came later on.
Nah, that racism coming after all the tyranny and destruction of all these different cultures.
Right.
Rome.
But and not only that, because we see this right here, we can say, all those people disappeared, nobody's here, but how about this? Please, somebody. Now this is modern.
It's real modern, like right. 2000 modern.
So this is modern. This is old. What was first? Come on, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, come on.
Where's the Pope at when he's doing this? Like, is he in one of the black countries or the Spanish countries?
No, if you go to the Vatican, in the front room, you'll see the white Jesus and Mary, but in the back room,
yeah, they got that.
Right, the original. Because they know. Yeah. This was them trying to tell us something. You feel what I'm saying? That's why I got questions, man.
I know one of the deacons out here was giving a Bible study, and he was talking about who is this the sick ones with the scabs on their bodies. What was that?
Leprosy.
Yeah, the leprosy people.
Leprosy, yeah.
That all those people had to be the way they described their skin, they had to be dark people. That everybody in that time or around that had to be dark people and not like dark like Arab dark. Right. He was trying to hint that they were black.
The original Arabs were called black.
Right.
It was called Saracens. Yeah, man. What I'm saying is that black and white shit is just not. It's just something new. I don't think people looked at each other as black and white before that construct.
No, that's probably the last 50 years that got incorporated, because you see that he's still saying like Negroid and
I think they said it was like the 1770s something. Some
that's like 200 years.
Yeah, man. Some Rosenbluck or some type of nigga came up with some, racial race chart
description. Yeah.
But the original colors of race was based off of the Magnus Opus album. It was black, white, red, and yellow.
Fuck, man.
Man. They can't. Those little questions right there. Those questions right there, man. People don't want to answer. They just act like they're gonna ignore this shit.
Well, they have, and the people that want to know is very few, so they can redirect or help them become scholars. But at the, in telling them to, when they become scholars, they have to keep to a certain pledge. You understand what I'm saying? And there goes that group again. You know what I mean? Hey, I'll give you a scholarship.
It messes up the whole story of slavery and all of that shit.
Yeah. But that only we can know this until somebody comes and seeks the knowledge. And
one of them.
Yeah.
So one of them tells us, then nobody ain't trying to hear it.
Right.
They'll tell us probably 20 years later, 20 years from now.
I don't know. You know, you just got these rare brains that are born, like the kid that made that. He made some special ass antenna from his basement. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they had to come take his design and incorporate it into something they had for many, many years. How did he figure it out? Like,
because this information is already inside of us. That's why they take people from all over the place and put them together, because they know at a certain time
on some poor shit too. Like, he just figured out some basic shit with a battery that they couldn't figure out with nuclear energy. Like, you understand what I'm saying? And it's bugged the fuck out, bro.
But you got to remember, every component they got to where they got to, somebody figured something out.
Right.
They just collected it and put it together. That's what they do. I got another one. Here go the kicker for y'all. Now, all right. The old world, Africa, Asia, Europe, right?
Uh-huh.
There were so-called white people there for thousands of years, right?
Uh-huh.
But not until what? Thousands of years later, when they came to here, they don't report no so-called white people over here. How could you explain this?
That's excellent. Because by that time, literation was well in effect. Recording news was well in effect. Who was running the tea companies and shit? I think that was white people, but prior to them,
I'm talking about before they came over here. They was in Africa for thousands of years before they came over here.
Right. They should have some type of historical evidence that they were here before they came here. Like, you know what I mean?
Right. Because if somebody that looked like them was here, they would have put that all inside the record.
Hell yeah. Come on, bro.
So why is it that we believe that all black people came from Africa? Why is that? We know white people came from over there.
So you think they flipped it on us?
Flip what?
That black people didn't come from Africa, only white people did.
No, I think black people came from Africa. White people came from black people who came from Africa.
Mm-hmm.
But the black people on that side of the world had white people, but black people on this side of the world did it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know where we came from first. I don't know that. I know where we came from the Most High. But at the end of the day, what happened was these people figured out where they came from, and they came over here and tried to fit us into their history and things of that nature. So the only way to explain that was we must have came from Africa before they did. So I don't know. The only thing they could relate to that looked like us were called, I guess, Africans, Ethiopians, or whatever they was calling them at that time. So when they came over here, they said these people look like these people from over here. You feel what I'm saying? So we look like people from Africa, and they brought people from Africa. How the hell they could tell who came from Africa and who was already here?
And they farmed thousands more, and they just incorporated everything. And it was just their story. They writing the story, like you said. That don't make it true.
Because you got to remember, it was 13 colonies, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't 50 states. So that means every state wasn't enslaved. Every state wasn't.
That's because when they got here, they was gonna try to do that kingship shit, that kingdom shit. That shit wasn't gonna work.
I think they got here in the 1400s and married into societies and all that. And by the time the 1600s came, they were shipping in their people. About time, you know what I'm saying? Like, because people died from diseases and all that, but I don't think it was just it happened real quick. I think it took over some years. Like, it took years for this to happen. 40 years, like an infiltration. It wasn't like an invasion. And a lot of the people who was in their armies, the majority of them was from over here. Because it's impossible to bring that many troops from all the way over there, all the way over here. Plus African slaves, plus, you know what I'm saying? Plus families, plus people they had already was over here, was taking different sides and fighting each other over here. Like they do in every country. They go to Iraq. And, you know, they fight with some of the Iraqi people. They train them and they help their soldiers because they can't send that many soldiers over there. They still don't do it. So I sit back and watch. They got all this technology. They still can't take over a little ass country, dusty ass Iraq. But they would expect me to believe they came over here with boats and cannons and they took over 2 continents.
I just think that we've been here. None of that shit, slave shit, and all that shit. I think niggas just been here, bro.
Right. That's what I believe.
I mean, Africa got black people. Yeah, that's cool, but motherfuckers, we been here. Like I asked my grandmother. Like, where you
always gotta mess it up, man. I was about to start agreeing with you, then you gotta go and say some other shit.
Nah, I ain't mean no disrespect. I'm just saying. I mean, I can go ask my grandmother still alive right now, like what, and she'll be like, "We down here." Like, it ain't nobody like, "Oh, my mother's came from Africa or came from." It's none of that.
That's true. That's true.
There's none of that. It's like we here, like, all right, here in New York, okay. Trace your roots from there. All right.
Yeah, now that's what I'm saying. I can't trace my roots from nobody in my family that came from no Africa, but I can trace my roots to people what they call Indian or Native. You feel me?
That's offending.
So that part of my family survived. So that would mean even if I was mixed with African, that would mean I'm more Native than I would be African. If I can't find
that's a fact.
You feel me?
That's a fact.
Where they at? Like I should be saying, like people tell me, "Oh, we got Indian in our family. One of your aunts was Indian, but one of my aunts was African. Where they at?" Like,
word. I was like, bro, we been here. That's all I know.
That's a fact.
Family reunions, ain't no African, none of that. Like,
Yeah, they gotta give me some answers because they've been lying to me for my whole life. What people want me to walk around and live my life as a lie? Like, that shit is not fair. That shit is not fair. If you want me to go to my grave knowing that this shit is a lie and what, teach it to the children? Like, look, that's crazy. I can't do that, man. I need some answers.
It's been the story for 400 years, bro.
Now, like now on the application.
I ain't been here for 400 years.
Yeah, but the story been raining for 400 years apparently. So
yeah, but apparently 400 years ago, white people was from Europe, black people was from Africa, yellow people was from Asia. Now the first people was from Africa. The first people in Europe was black. The first people in Asia was black. The first people in America was black. So shit done changed. You know what I'm saying? So somebody needs to explain to me what the fuck is going on, because I'm here now. Like,
touche, pussycat, touche. That little mouse, touche.
And I know, look, you see, this is my kinfolk right here, and I know, right here, the brother in the picture. You know what I'm saying? People be like, oh man, maybe he's mixed. His hair's kind of straight, and something like he might look a little, India. Black people have people like with straight hair. Black people have white people. Black people have all types of people. It's just that the black people over here wasn't having white people. The black people over there was having white people. You feel what I'm saying? Because if we was having white people over here, when the white people came over here, they would have said, oh, it was white people over here. They don't say that. They say, oh, it was people over here that look like the Ethiopians, which means black. You feel me? And they came over here with black people from Europe, from Asia, and from Africa. And some of them was related to each other. I'm just saying that because Chief Warhorse said, that's what Chief Warhorse said. You feel me? Like,
funny as hell.
Yeah, listen. That's what listen, bro.
He dead serious, man.
I know he dead serious.
Yeah, I showed the video. See the native black, the lady black lady. Chief Warhorse.
The lady black
nigga, man. So funny, man. It was so funny, bro.
I know that.
I just need some answers, man.
I know that my mom's husband, rest in peace, just passed away and shit, and his family is some tribal Indian, and when they came, they black, but they like some light skins, like almost like it was wild, like, you know what I mean? But the whole family was that, like, you know what I mean? Like, and they was telling some old stories, and they like Indian stories, they like tribal stories, you know what I mean? And of his family, and I was surprised, like. Right. I thought he was black of the day, like I thought he was.
He is black. Yeah, what you talking about, man?
Nigga try to take his black card away from him. Yeah, big time. You vicious.
No, I'm not, man.
Nah, that's just the program. Now I understand what you're saying.
He said, "No, I'm not."
Nah, I get it.
Remember, not all black natives was tribal people.
Right.
Some people dress with pants and all of that shit. Like, come on, bro.
And they get mad. They get mad offended when you call them Cherokee and all that. Like, that shit was mad funny.
Yeah, because Cherokee.
What tribe are you are? Cherokee, they all got shriveled up.
You got to remember, a lot of these tribal names is what they call the people. Like, Creek, like the Creek.
I'm from the light skinned tribe.
Like the Creek Indians, they call them that because they live near the creek. You feel me? You feel me?
That's
fucked up.
What made Baltimore, Pennsylvania, man? Like, you don't know. One of them wars.
Pennsylvania was named after somebody. I forgot, man. But you can Google all this shit, bro.
Yeah.
That's how I be learning. When I get a question, I'll Google that shit. That should lead to something else, I'll be like, this shit right here is spooky.
Like they had this shit all figured out.
Nah, what they did was when these people came, like when the immigrants came over here, they created a fake ass history that wasn't here. It was no schools, public schools. It was no set history and all that. So
Right.
like after the late 1800s.
Come later, yeah.
Right. So the people who came here through immigrate Ellis Island, all of them people who
They
came
just gave them land and they could do what they want. So people had to learn to farm their shit.
They needed them to be the majority. They needed them for the numbers. You feel what I'm saying?
Right. But slavery, and bondage, was the major industry here. Like, you know what I mean?
But how we know that, like, this is what I'm saying. The people who came over here, they wasn't here during no slavery, so they only know what people was telling them. How they know what was going over here 300 years before 400 years?
And them people came over here. Slavery was in effect.
When?
This shit wasn't free land yet.
The 1800s, slavery was over, right?
Lincoln was the 16th president, right?
Right.
He's the 16th president. It took 16 presidents for them motherfuckers to fucking end slavery, and it still wasn't over.
I'm talking about the people who came over here at that time. A lot of them is not here. The people who's in power now inside the political offices, the people who's in charge of the schools, the curriculums, those people came later. After slavery was over, they came as from immigrant families. If you listen to people's story, they tell you, "Oh, we came here from an immigrant family. We had 5 cents, and then we raised all the way up to the level." Like, they all got the same story.
That's a fact.
Came here with nothing. Came here with nothing, and next thing you know, you got this fucking mansions and shit.
Fuck.
Most all of our presidents, all of that came from an immigrant family, my brother.
Right, but they came and like you said, they came after what was all of the shit that already happened. The blood was spilled.
The Kennedys was not here. They wasn't here during slavery. You feel me? Or maybe probably the Bushes, old Jebediah Bush. You know
I don't know. They somehow traced Obama's line back to George Washington. So you know what I mean?
Yeah. Once you start getting to George Washington and them niggas, I ain't jacking none of those niggas. You talk about Kennedy, Eisenhower, them motherfuckers right there, like that type of shit.
But they way later. They're not the beginning of this.
Teddy, what's his name? Teddy, what's his name? The teddy bear, Teddy president?
Roosevelt.
Right, that nigga.
That's much later. That's like in the 50s, 60s when shit was popping.
Those are the niggas who was taking. It wasn't 50 states yet. When it was.
But the chaos had already been in. The history was already made. They didn't make history.
They was fighting Mexico. They was still getting Los Angeles, Texas. This shit wasn't established yet. This is what I'm trying to tell you. So if this shit wasn't established and everybody wasn't together, how they got the history of what happened in all of these places? How they know this shit?
That's a fact. That's what the Commonwealth came from, making shit as they go.
After this shit became the Union, the United States, and then they start putting more states on top of it until they got the 50 states and all of that shit. Then they start making up American history, United States history. You go to school.
Nah, they don't make the history. They didn't make the history then.
Who made history?
Hell no. History was already happening. Like, because all that time, by the time Penny and them, all of them come, my grandmother is a 20-year-old woman. Like, you understand what I'm saying?
You
like
a history book?
She lived something. Like, so she telling me her life.
I'm talking about written history in school, my bro. I'm talking about when you go to school and you get a history book and it's telling you what happened in America.
But by the time Kennedy and them come, how many presidents? It's like 30 presidents. Like,
how do we know how many presidents he was?
Oh man, American history happened. Those revolutionaries happened. Like people died. Like those are families connected to that. Some people came because they families died in those wars. Like, you know
Yeah,
what I
we
mean?
have family. Yeah, my
By the
people got
time
families
Penny and
that
them,
died. Yeah, my people got families that fought and died in those wars too. But what I'm saying
yeah,
is the way, like you said, the history is written by the victor, right?
yes.
Okay, then. So if the history is written by the victor, how do we know that this is true?
Facts, because they putting their own spin on shit because they won.
Right.
Nobody give a fuck about who lost.
Because the bad people
Nobody
had
lost.
survivors, man, and the survivors was out there. Like they couldn't
So,
shut everybody up, bro.
so why did so what's the gaps? Why they
That's why
can't
you
give us
have a
answers?
history,
But
because
why
they
they
have.
can't give us answers for certain things that our people have participated in, that they locked, that they tried to cover, that's now coming to the surface? If they was telling us the truth, why are these things coming out that they can't answer? Like, it's not true. It's not real. It's not true. Where does this stuff fit into history? Like, people can't give me answers to this.
Yeah, somebody done fucked up.
I'm not a historian, but you know, if you can't mesh all this shit in one time frame, like this shit is
Nah, they kept
out.
all this shit in the
Now I'm
dark.
not mentioning it in one time frame. This is the colonial period. So this is when they first started to colonize here. This is where it started. So in the beginning, Christ is black. Now he's white.
When George Washington and them dudes come over here, they not screaming Christ is black, nigga.
How
Like,
you
you
know?
understand what I'm saying?
How
They
you know
wasn't
that?
screaming that.
But how you know what they were screaming?
They believed in slavery, bro.
How do you
That's
look?
what our
You
history
telling me
tells us.
you telling me what some characters believe in history, and I'm showing you something that's right here. Like, you telling me something?
Yeah, but that could be in a whole other region. Like that's across the pond right there,
Because
what you
Latin
showing
America.
me. Right? That's across the pond, right?
No,
you got the Spaniards that went through shit. You got
Latin
fucking
America.
Europe that
Right,
went through
Latin
shit. You
Latin
can't match all
America.
that shit.
Right, Latin America. That's Mexico, Los Angeles, Latin America. Right.
I got what you're saying.
These people came from Spain. The Moors ruled Spain for 700 years. That's something they not telling us.
No, nigga, I was outside your building. Nigga, I went outside expecting you to see the building. So I didn't go to the same building. No, nigga,
What the fuck on? Oh, yes, next game.
We need a fucking time machine and just go back and see what the fuck was that.
The only time machine we got is this damn history they gave us in research, man.
Mm-hmm. But you gotta read in between the lines. None of that shit.
Because listen, this is my kid, bro. Look, they got on a suit, a tie. He know how to tie the tie
like America has a history, right? But so does Spain. So does every other place.
Right.
So when they write their history and talk about America or their greats, you know what I mean? Like that's how you know certain shit existed. Like and the mind frames of those times. You can't say that they all was lying and they all in
history
cahoots
is
with
not
each
the
other.
same in everybody's country. Everybody's history is not the same. That's why they call this American history. That's why when people study outside of American history, they find things that contradict American history. Because everybody's history is not the same all over the world.
That's that even go into was every black person a slave type shit? Because you just showed the picture where motherfuckers was dressed nice.
That's what I'm saying. Every
They
black
can't be
person is
slaves,
not a
could they?
slave. If you read into these people's history, if you want to believe it, they're even telling you in their history, every black person wasn't a slave. They even tell you some black people was native. They tell you some natives had to vote as Negro, or they could not vote. So if you voted as Negro, then you was classified as black, but you were native.
Mm-hmm.
And what
Some
time
of them had
frame is this
slaves
though?
too.
Is that happening? 1700s, 1800s?
Nah, this was like in the 1900s. The Narragansett Indians. I played a clip.
1902, 1920.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Even if it was 1900s, the 1600s, if these people were classified as black, how do you know if these people?
Slavery already happened in the 17 and 1800s, so that history is already written. Like, you know what I mean? So
how do you know they came from Africa? If they was classified as Negro in the 1600s, and now we in 2021, and people are Negro, how do you know these Negro people came from Africa? How do you know they wasn't just classified as Negro?
Oh, that you don't know, but you don't know. I guess they family would have to have them, because just like my father-in-law or whatever I was talking about. Like, how do they know they was Indian or Wichita or whatever that Indian tribe is? No disrespect, but
because what happened is they have family that didn't register as Negro because they decided they wasn't going to partake in society and vote, so they stood with their heritage.
That makes sense. Because if you ain't registered, you pretty much
you're not classified as a Negro.
Yeah, you off the radar, so to speak.
Right. So now after civil rights, Native Americans, everybody had the right to vote. So now if you remained a Native American, you can now vote as Native American. But if you decided to vote earlier and classified as Negro, now you classified as Negro. And then now when they changed Negro to African American, now people think you came from Africa.
What?
Is he going to the stuff?
Yeah. I'm on.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just saying. I'm just gonna keep looking into shit, bro. But I can't believe the shit they telling me. Like, it's just too many holes and missing pieces and shit coming out. Like, so now the BBC, right? This is British. These are the people who came over here and told us we came from Africa. Now they telling us the first people here was black. What happened to those people? They just died, disappeared. 2 continents of black people just disappeared. In some tropical Caribbean islands. So 2 continents in tropical Caribbean islands full of black people just disappeared. And then they was replaced by a couple of million of Africans. So they say that was brought over here. Oh shoot, it's 8:19, man. I got to get out of here, man. Salute from the hood to the woods. Salute to the chat. Salute y'all. Tomorrow, 7 p.m.
All right, y'all. Salute.